Hey everybody, welcome back. Today is going to be kind of a quick one. I'm going to go over how to create beautiful minimalist black and white landscapes from a color image in Lightroom. This is going to be a real quick one. I'm going to show you step by step what I do, and you can use some of these same techniques in your own photography. I was lucky enough to go to New Zealand for my honeymoon back at the beginning of 2020 before the world sort of ended, and as a part of the trip we went to Wanaka, New Zealand, in the South Island, and this very famous tree that I'm sure you've seen tons of photos of. So this is the image straight out of camera taken on a Nikon D750 with the Tamron 70 to 200 f4 lens, which was a rental at the time, very good lens. And the conditions were a little bit cloudy, a little overcast, didn't have quite the dramatic light I was looking for, but this is a good opportunity to massage the image and get something out of it that I had in mind when I was there. More of a minimalist landscape. Now, looking at the image, the first thing that I want to do when I go into an image to develop it or process it, I want to have an end goal in mind. The first thing I want to do is separate the tree itself, the trunk and the branches and the leaves, from the background. Right now the image is a little underexposed. Also, there's not a lot of contrast between the foreground and the background, so let's make a few adjustments. Now first, because this is going to be a black and white image, I'm not too concerned about the profile that I use here on the right hand side. I'm using camera neutral right now. This is just sort of a flat profile. It gives me a lot to work with. Next, I am going to level the image a little bit because it's just a little bit off, the horizon is a little bit off center. So I'm going to use this little crop and straighten tool, then click on the straighten tool, the little ruler here. I'm going to click on one side of the horizon and drag it to the other side, and it's going to just adjust that for me automatically. That looks a lot better. The next thing I'm going to do is increase the exposure a little bit. This is a little bit underexposed, so I'm going to give myself a little bit more to work with. By dragging the center of the histogram in this upper right hand corner, I'm going to drag it up just to give myself a little bit more exposure to deal with. Next, I'm going to go to the tone curve here. I'm going to create a little bit of mid-tone contrast. And the way I do that is I create a point in the lower mid-tones here and a point in the upper mid-tones and create what's called an S-curve. It's just a general way of creating mid-tone contrast without affecting the darkest tones of an image or the highlights in an image. So I'm going to drag the lower mid-tones down a little bit, the upper mid-tones up, just to give myself a little more contrast. Now at this point, I'm going to go ahead and convert it to black and white. But before I do that, take note that the mountains in the background are quite blue because of the haze, because of the overcast nature of the day. And that's going to be really helpful. I'm going to use that color information to help separate the tree from the background. So I'm going to scroll up to the top of this here. In the upper right hand corner, I'm going to click on black and white. It's going to convert it to black and white. Now as you see, it's even muddier. The tree itself is very barely darker than the surrounding mountains behind it. So what I'm going to do is go down to the black and white mix, and I'm going to remember that these mountains were actually very blue. So I'm going to take the blue values in the image and I'm going to increase them. And already we're starting to see a lot more separation between the foreground and the background. Beautiful. Now the next thing I'm going to do is increase the overall exposure a little bit more without peaking too much there. Now next, I'm going to take this a little bit farther. Now generally, you would use a dehaze tool to remove sort of atmospherics in an image and actually make it clearer. In this case, I'm going to use a negative value for the dehaze slider, and that's going to do the opposite. That's going to emphasize the haze that's in the image. And as you see, as I drag it to the left a little bit, it's starting to create more of that sort of minimalist, low contrast background where the tree itself really stands out. That's what I want to emphasize. I want to emphasize the shape of the tree and the distant mountains in the background just being details that are sort of peripheral to the image. Alright, so I'm actually pretty happy with where this is right now. The next thing I want to do is go back to the black and white mix, and I'm going to remember again that the leaves on the tree are a mixture of yellow and green tones, and I can use that information to actually create more contrast and make those leaves pop a little bit more over the very dark branches and stump there. So let's go to the black and white mix. I'm going to zoom in a little bit so I see what I'm doing, and I'm going to increase the greens a little bit. And as you see, the darker tones of the leaves are a little brighter. And I'm going to increase the yellow, and that's going to increase the brighter tones of the leaves. And all I'm doing is bringing out a little bit more of that detail in those leaves and helping them to separate more from the branches. All right, I think that's pretty much all I want to do with this image. Okay, let's take a look at the image all by itself by going into lights out mode in Lightroom by pressing the L button a couple of times. And let's go from the original color image here, which is a little underexposed, a little bit low contrast, and what we've done with the black and white after just a few adjustments. I had something in mind going into it, so I wanted to create a minimal image where the tree itself is the subject, but I also wanted to use the color information in the color image to help inform the adjustments I made to the black and white image. This is really great, and it's why most of my black and white photography, if I'm shooting digitally, I'm still shooting a color raw image so that I can use the color information to help me determine what I want to do with the image in the future. So I hope this was helpful. I hope this was informative in some way. If you have any questions about black and white photography or kind of achieving minimalism in digital photography, please leave a comment in the comments down below. And if you like this video, please remember to like and subscribe to my channel. There'll be more videos like this coming down the line. Thank you so much for joining me today, and I'll see you next time.